Welcome. Thank you all for joining us in this impromptu webinar. I'm Licky Lavji, the chair for the Vancouver's World Partnership Walk for 2017. And I've got three individuals with me, and I'm looking forward to having a quick chat with them to explain what we do. On the top left is Shaquille. Shaquille, would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Yeah, thank you. Pleasure to be here, Licky. Shaquille Barmo, I'm the Chief Operating Officer for AKFC Foundation Canada.
Excellent. And then on below Shaquille, we have Atia.
Hi, thank you for having me. My name is Atia, and I work in corporate engagement for the AKFC Foundation based in Vancouver.
Excellent. And then we have Derek Gent.
Hi, Licky. I'm very, very pleased to be here. My name is Derek Gent. I have a long relationship with AKFC Foundation Canada, initially as a fellow working in Bangladesh, but since that time I've been a long-time volunteer and active supporter.
Excellent. Thanks a lot, guys. I really appreciate the time you've taken to do this. I'm just going to get right into it. I want to ask a very simple question. A lot of people don't know, what is the walk? So Shaquille, maybe you can answer that question. What's the walk all about?
So the walk is actually Canada's largest public event to raise funds for the work that Canada does to alleviate poverty in Asia and Africa. It has about 40,000 people participating every year, organized almost entirely by volunteers in 10 cities. And essentially, it's a fundraising event to generate dollars and awareness for the great work that Canada does in making the world a better place for those marginalized and vulnerable people and communities in Africa and Asia.
Excellent. That's a very nice, precise answer. I like that. You know, I want to ask each of you now to share a story that's moved you about the impact of the walk. Atia, how about if you start with that?
Sure. So last year, I actually had the opportunity to go to Mozambique and Tanzania to visit a number of the projects that Canadians are supporting in developing countries. And one day in particular, and one program that really resonated with me, was the community-based savings group that we visited. And so we went to this village where a number of people, I think it was a group of 20 people, came together every 2 weeks in kind of an informal banking system. And so what they did is, one by one, they went around in the circle and they each announced one of the rules that they had for their group. And some of the rules were, if you show up to meeting late, you have to pay a fine. If you don't have an excused absence from a meeting, you have to pay a fine. And so once they've gone through all the rules and everyone is held accountable, they then all contribute to the social fund. And so if something arises in their community, like a funeral, then they can pull from this social fund and support one another. And then finally, the third component is a savings contribution. So one by one, they each went and made their contribution, whatever they could save over those 2 weeks, and put it into this banking system. And every time someone was able to achieve the maximum amount and make that maximum contribution, the entire group collectively came together and did this neat clapping pattern in order to give each other a pat on the back, and that added incentive and encouragement from within the community. And so there was a number of kids that were so eagerly waiting for all of the members of the savings group to make those maximum contributions so they could then clap along. And so individuals can then pull from the savings group, take out small loans with interest to then start small businesses. And the most incredible thing is, we were speaking to one of the mothers who said, it's really changed my life and my family's life, but she said it's going to have an impact for generations to come, because one day we couldn't find our children, and after searching for a while, we found them kind of tucked away behind some trees and some bushes, and we saw that they were all playing savings group. They had collected sticks and stones, and they were trying to simulate the savings group that their parents did. So we know that the impact we're having in that community is going to, it's going to be last for a lifetime and for years and years to come.
That's great. Thanks,
Licky, if I can just add to that great story is that when people get together at the walk and they raise funds for the walk, essentially what they're doing is raising funds for Aga Khan Foundation's programs, an example of which is the program that Atia just described. So we're not buying people things, we're investing in training, education, and programming so that they themselves can learn how to save better, how they can make more money, and they can live a more self-sustainable lifestyle going forward in the future and for generations. So that's how the walk's fundraising connects to the work that we're doing.
That's great. Now, also, if I'm not mistaken, the people at that village were also able to go to the next village and train them the same thing as well, correct?
Yeah, that's a big part of it, is transferring the knowledge from one village to the other. And as they teach these techniques, it reinforces it for them, but they have a lot more credibility going from village to village than does somebody from another country coming in to teach them. So it's self-sustaining.
Great, thank you. So Derek, you've been around the foundation for a while, and you were a fellow back in the day. So I'd love to hear some of your stories that impacted you of the walk.
Sure, I'm always pleased to share the stories, and I would venture to say that the work supported by the walk and the people supported by the walk have fundamentally changed my life. So as I mentioned, 20 years ago, I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do. I was a brand new graduate, and I applied for this fellowship that seemed kind of interesting, but I really didn't know much about it. And they sent me off to live and work for almost a year in the rural villages of Bangladesh. And it was such a completely different context that, in addition to getting over a culture shock, I found myself so inspired by the passion and the hospitality and the generosity and the development work that was happening over there that it literally, entrenched my commitment to support this for the rest of my life. As a good example, I was there working in microcredit that Atia talked about, but in every village that we would go out and visit, you would inevitably go to the schoolhouse. It's another really important tenet of the work of the Aga Khan Foundation and the Canadian government is supporting education outcomes. So they build these very small one-room schoolhouses. Most of the students are girls on purpose in order to prove access to education. And they would inevitably gather in a circle, because I was a visitor from far away, and sing a song, share a story, practice their writing, their reading, and I continue to this day to have the image in my head of the young teachers. The other thing they do is educate young women in the village to become teachers and to train other teachers, saying to me how incredibly grateful she was for the contributions of the organization that I was working with. And she said, if you do one thing, go back to Canada and tell them about us, because we want to be connected to the rest of the world. I want them to understand more about me. I want to understand more about you. And for me, that's really what the walk is all about, is making the world a smaller, more connected place. And so I don't have any difficulty getting inspired, encouraging other people to come out with me on walk day and to share the stories of what development looks like and how you can make such a huge difference by participating.
Excellent. Thank you, Derek. That's very touching. It's incredible that 20 years ago, this is where you ended up today.
And they continue to do this. That program has been in existence, and now there are actually several different fellowship streams. So they are taking people from Canada, putting them overseas, not so much to give back, to be honest. The other thing I fundamentally learned is how much we have to learn from what development looks like in other parts of the world. So I'm a keen advocate in promoting cross-cultural learning, and I firmly believe that I learned more in the year in Bangladesh than I did in a 2-year MBA program at Queen's University.
So that's my next question. I'm just going to ask you, Derek. Why should Canadians participate in the walk? I keep on hearing there's so much we need to do locally, but yet the funds that we're raising are going abroad. But so
I
why
don't
would
think it, yeah, I really don't think it's an either or situation. It certainly isn't for me. In my day job, I work here with a local community foundation connected to a credit union and support all sorts of local causes, but that doesn't take away from the value I see in contributing to development efforts overseas. And in fact, as I said, the more I learn about what works there and what works here, the better off everyone is. So I see my contribution to the work of Aga Khan Foundation, the World Partnership Walk, and the Canadian government overseas as completely consistent and in fact complementary with the support that's provided here locally. It's and the world's becoming a much smaller place. So I also firmly believe that the efforts we make in supporting development help promote peace and tolerance and pluralism all over the world.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you. Shakil, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, no, there's a story I just heard very recently from our CEO who's got a 4-year-old daughter, and he told a really great story to a group of our volunteers. He said that he was driving, taking his daughter to gymnastics, and on the drive, she asked a question and said, Daddy, what would happen if the fire station was on fire? And Khalil, our CEO, thought that was an interesting question, but he told his daughter not to worry, that if the fire station was on fire, then there's another fire station not too far away that will come to their rescue. And she accepted that answer, but a few minutes later she said, Daddy, what would happen if like all the fire stations are on fire? And our CEO tells of how he was actually stumped, and he thought about her question, and he said to her, now, sweetheart, that would be a problem. And she said, yes, it would. And the reason I love that story is because there's so much craziness going on in the world today, and it's very easy to get caught up with all the difficulties and challenges in the news and what's happening in the world. But it kind of does feel like all those countries that would come forward and help other countries that are in trouble, they're kind of on fire. And so it's an opportunity for Canada, for Canadians, with our system of belief in equality, pluralism, and prosperity for all. It's kind of our time to really step up and help. And I'll tell you, when you drive around these rural areas, whether it be in Bangladesh, where Derek went, or in Mozambique, where Tia was, or my favorite story in Morogoro, Tanzania, at the end of the day, they don't know about the craziness that's going on in the world. At the end of the day, what they're focused on in making sure their children can survive past the age of 5, making sure they have access to health and education, that's what matters to them. And so those are the parts of the world, Asia and Africa, that are suffering the most from childhood death, from death of mothers during labor and childbirth in the early years. Those are the regions that need the most help and don't have the social services. So that's why Canada should care. It's in our value system, and it's a need in the world.
That's great. Shakil, one of the presentation slides you always show me that really touches my heart is the one about the map, where you blow the map up to show this little file. So talk about that a bit.
Yeah, I mean, if you looked at, there's some pretty neat data analytic tools available these days, but if you looked at a map of the world, instead of looking at it by land mass, which is what we're used to looking at it by, is if you manipulated the chart to show based on population, and specifically population of people living on less than $1.25 a day, what you'd end up seeing is that Asia and Africa specifically swell up like a balloon, and parts of the world like North America, obviously, Western Europe, even South America actually shrink down almost to the point where you can't see them. So if you look at the map of the world based on where the significant problem is, not to say there aren't issues here at home, for sure there is, and we have a responsibility to help with those, as Derek said, but where the size of the problem is huge is in those parts of Asia and Africa where we work.
That's great. Thank you. I look at it from a perspective that we're living in the city, we're living in this country, and our civil responsibility is to take care of our local environment, local government.
Yeah.
And that's what we're living here. We're blessed to be living here. But the social responsibility that we have also is to help where they can't get the help.
Yep, absolutely.
Right. It's this it's this idea of global citizenship, and that we all live on the planet together, and we have this responsibility to take care of and help one another.
Great, thank you. So what does someone get out of participating in the walk in Vancouver or across Canada? Shaquille?
Oh, well, yeah. Well, as I've traveled across the country, I've met with lots of people, business leaders, volunteers, young professionals, school-age children. Every one of them tells me a great story about what they've learned from the walk, and it's different for different people. Some people say participating in the walk has actually brought me into a community of people that care about the world in the way I care about the world. And so they've gotten some friendships and engagement and a feeling of connection. Other people tell me that by getting involved with the walk and forming a team for the walk in their school, they've got a chance to develop leadership skills and engage their fellow students and their teachers, and kind of help them build a bit of confidence as they do their applications for university. I've had young people tell me how it's actually helped their career by getting involved in the walk in a cause they really believe in. They have access to leaders in the organization that also care about those things, and it gives them a boost in that confidence and that profile and that skill in their organizations. But ultimately, across the board, what everybody fundamentally tells me is it just feels good. It feels good when you think about the problems that exist in the world today to know that, you know, I'm a part of that. I'm a part of the solution. I'm a part of making the world a better place. I wake up in the morning, I feel better about myself. I feel more optimistic about the world. And essentially, that's, I think, what most people get out of it.
That's great. Thank you. Derek, I'm going to ask you a question, because I recall we were talking about a young gentleman who came to the Vance City to actually do a presentation. And you were instrumental in that introduction and getting the young gentleman to get the presentation happening. How about talking a little bit about that? Because this conversation is going to be shared with young kids as well, so I'd love to inspire them.
Oh, young Tariq, of course. Yeah,
yes.
This is an amazing example of the leadership and passion and capacity that exists out there among young people. Tariq's like 12 or 13 years old, and he has single-handedly raised tens of thousands of dollars and organized groups, not just in his own school, but in other schools, and is reflecting the kind of next generation leadership and genuine passion about helping others that just absolutely blows me away. And tapping into that, as someone who's moved from sort of young person supporting others to helping to mentor and coach individuals, I gain such inspiration from that, and see the potential to activate that in other schools with other young people. What I found is that by actually giving them more responsibility and asking them questions, we achieve way more than if we try to walk them through a process that they don't understand. As another great example, we talked about how we could use Facebook and Twitter to spread the word. And these young people said, we don't use Facebook and Twitter. Let us show you how to do it. And they were on Snapchat in a minute and organizing crowds. And it is fascinating to see how giving back manifests among young people, and what we can do to connect ourselves across demographics, across ethnicities, and that's another really important part of the walk from my take, is a chance for me to participate and bring my kids to see what our community really looks like. When you're there on walk day, there are folks from all different demographics and walks of life, and to be a part of that really, really feels good.
Excellent, thank you. So Atiya, I know your role is corporate engagement. What does that mean? How are you engaging corporates? What options do corporates have to get involved in the walk?
So there is the opportunity to become a corporate donor or a corporate sponsor, but the biggest push that we have is getting workplace teams created. So getting a company involved and getting their employees together to support this cause. And so my job is to go speak to these companies and to give them kind of a vehicle to make a difference in the world. And they come together, fundraise as a team, come out on walk day with their spouses and their kids and their pets. And it really creates this kind of unity within their company, and really builds culture. And we have found in speaking to leadership that their employees are very hungry for something that'll make a difference in the world, something they can all work collectively towards. And so this gives them an opportunity to kind of build culture, and an opportunity to kind of get involved locally in the community in meeting people, but also knowing the impact that they're having abroad.
Great. And your team goes in and supports their team to make sure that they don't have a lot of work to do. They basically have to create the awareness and create the team, and then you have all the tools to make sure that it gets executed.
Exactly. Yeah, we have a great team that's more than happy to come in and from start to finish help you run your campaign, and we customize the program to fit the needs of the company that we're working with. And like you mentioned, lots of great tools and resources to enable the fundraising and to raise more awareness in corporate Canada.
Actually, I just want to add to that. I mean, we actually talked to some young people that have been very successful in building workplace teams. And we said, what can we do to help people be more successful? And they gave us some suggestions of very specific tools that we can create. Well, we did it. We created those tools. So if you go to worldpartnershipwalk.com and you go to the workplace team section, you can access some really great tools, a team captain's guide, email templates that you can send to your leadership, email templates you can send to your coworkers, a PowerPoint presentation you can use to present to your workplace. There's some amazing tools that make it really, really easy to get started and display your global citizenship in your workplace.
Great. So last question for all three of you, and I'll ask individually. In 20 seconds or less, what does the foundation do? It's a tough question in 20 seconds, but recap it down, because a lot of people don't know what the foundation is. So give it a couple seconds, think about it. But it's like your elevator speech. You've got 20 seconds in between the 4th and the 8th floor. What does the foundation do? Okay, Derek.
The analogy I love using is around different approaches to supporting others. There are a whole range of different aid-based charities that address disaster relief and support people in dire need. And then there are development organizations. And the work supported by the Walk is developmental. It's a fundamentally different approach, and it's intergenerational, it's systemic, and it makes a huge difference over a long period of time. That for me is why I participate and why I give.
That's great. That's a great answer. Mattia?
I really think that the Aga Khan Foundation is enabling, or we're providing hope. And a lot of people in these countries, and I can attest to it, having met and spoken with many of them, teachers and parents and students, is that, you know, they lack the means and the motivation to pull themselves out of poverty. And these individuals are they're very intelligent, they're very capable, but what they do lack is hope. And so we provide that through our programs in these countries.
Great, thank you. And Shaquille?
I'll finish off with a story that I heard in a village in Africa. And the story goes like this. There's a woman that was walking down a path in her village, and she looked over and she saw a little boy with his arms stretched trying to reach a mango off the mango tree. He was just short, probably a half an inch, maybe a little bit less. He just couldn't reach that mango. And she had a choice to make. She says, I can go there and I can just pick the mango for him. She said, or I can just pick him up so that he can reach the mango and grab it. But what she chose to do instead was to go underneath him, hand under his bottom, and lift him just so little, maybe about a half an inch, to the point at which he plucked the mango himself. And as far as he's concerned, he did it by himself. And so that's what I like to think about what Aga Khan Foundation does, is we're that lady that giving this a little bit of a push to help those who have the desire and the hope and the ability to accomplish things for themselves, but just need that extra little push. And that's what we are doing. That's what the Canadians that support our work are doing. That's what we as an organization are doing. And that we're helping to help people achieve their basic desires and hopes and dreams for their children and their children's children.
Very well said. Thank you.
Thank you.
Again, thank you for your time, and we'll share this with everybody that wants to see it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Licky.
Thanks,
Thank you
Licky.
all.
Look forward to seeing folks on Walk Day. We'll see you in the food line.
Exactly.
Take care. All right.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.